I don't think becoming a YouTuber or content creator was really my goal at all. My investment banking video, that was a video that I made where I was like, okay, like low key, I want this to blow up because I feel like it can. I'm gonna grind and push through the boring stuff, but then I still have my passion, which is my own stuff. And I think when you start relying on that passion for money, that's when it gets stressful. Honestly, I don't know where I'm gonna be in the future. It's kind of like that's one of the points in the video I'm working on right now. I think that's why people watch those videos. Sometimes it's also just an escape. Like they want to see like, yo, like if I actually pursued this path, like what would my life look like and what could it look like?
So the first thing I wanted to ask you, so I watched a few of your videos, including the investment banking video and then the day in the life at Rice.
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed that I honestly like want to learn from is like, how do you get to become so confident filming in public? Because I think that's something that so many people struggle with.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like you embraced that in those videos. So yeah, tell me, like, were you always like that? Did you have to practice?
I'd probably say no, and I think I'm still learning.
Okay.
At the time when I made those videos, so if you look back to my very first YouTube video, you can probably tell that was my first time like talking in public and trying to like vlog in public essentially.
Yeah.
I think from that year time span to the investment banking internship, I think I probably improved a little bit better. I think I just learned really well from like imitation. So I'd watch a lot of vloggers and try to like mimic their vibes and styles. And those videos, the Rice one and the banking one, that was kind of just from like watching a lot of other creators and seeing like how they act. But nowadays, I think I'm a lot more natural because I've just like wanted to be more authentic. That's kind of been the theme of the year for me, just more transparent, more authentic. And now that like I'm able to just express myself a lot easier, I feel like a lot more natural. So I think it comes in time. Sometimes like you'll have to do multiple takes. Like my rule is like no more than 3 takes. Yeah. I don't want to like, I used to record like 20 clips of me saying, yo, it's been a great day. What's up, guy? Like it's just, I'd rather just do 1 take now and just go with that because it feels more authentic.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think that's something that like, I mean, I use a teleprompter for filming, but I feel like there's an element that you need to be sort of like talking to the person on the other side of the camera all the time with YouTube. So with like the vlog style content that you make, like, did you have any like influences? Like what made you like want to start making videos? Did you like, go ahead.
So I guess this is like funny because like a lot of people were surprised, but like, I really didn't watch YouTube until COVID.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was my original thing was I was always big into video games.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like a professional esports gamer. I played CS:GO, PUBG, like any game I could find. So I was really big on the Twitch space. So I watched a lot of streamers a lot of times. And when COVID came, I kind of just like everyone else, there's nothing really much to do. And obviously I was on YouTube before that. Like I still saw videos, but I wasn't like religiously like addicted or watching someone. Like I wasn't even into like Logan Paul or like Kate. I never had that phase. I got into them more recently because I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like I have stuff to watch. But it was during COVID and I started watching vlogs about, I was getting ready for college. Obviously it was my senior year in high school. And I started watching vlogs about college content creators. So typically you would just want to know like what's going on in school. So I looked up day in the lives on YouTube, ended up finding this guy named Elliot Choi, who's like everyone pretty much knows. He's like one of the OG college vloggers. Yeah. But I watched his videos and I don't know, I just felt like very like, it was cool to like live through him and just be like, whoa, that's like what college is going to be like for me. And that seems really cool. And then from then on, as I watched his videos, I got associated with his friends through his videos, like Kelly Wakasa, Jimmy Zhang. I just remember that era of COVID summer where I was just watching them all live together because they had like a summer house at the time. And it was just super fun. I was like, yo, this is what I want to do in the future, maybe. Because I didn't really start creating for 2 years after that. I started creating in 2021 or 2022. Yeah. So in that phase, I was just watching for fun. I never had an idea, like an ambition of wanting to become a YouTuber. Everything kind of trickled down, I think, the fall of my sophomore year. Yeah.
Awesome. It's interesting because when I asked Ethan that, he also mentioned Elliot Choi as like a big inspiration for him. So yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I noticed when looking in the comments of like the Rice video that you did, there were a lot of people who were like, thank you for making this. Like, I want to go to Rice, or like, oh, like I just got accepted and like, this is great to like see what it's like. Yeah. And I feel like with those videos, like you can really like bring people into the experience of what it's like to be. So how do you think about like bringing the audience along for what you're experiencing? because there's a lot of filming that's involved. Like you have to set up the camera, you have to think about like when you're going to speak. Like, is there a lot of thought that you put into before the video, or is it like you film a lot of stuff and then after you put it together?
Yeah. It's actually funny because I don't even go to Rice, which is like hilarious. I liked making videos just to showcase, even though I don't go there. But
yeah.
I think I've always been a very big planner. I like being organized. I'm actually getting back into that mindset now because I just have a lot more I need to do. But at the time, I'd say the best example I could think of was my investment banking video. Because that was a video that I made where I kind of strategically, like, I was like, okay, like, low-key, I want this to blow up because I feel like it can if I just add this flair. And so I had, like, a whole, like, Notion sheet, which I still have right now. And I had, like, the shots I wanted. I had all the thumbnail inspirations, what I didn't like about other competitors that made videos like that. I'm very, like, business-minded when I think about, like, video production. So I literally looked up all the day in the lives of investment banking. I was like, okay, like, this was good. This is good. I did not like this. This wouldn't really appeal to me. And so I did a lot of pre-production at the time. I wrote the script. I had the shots. And I like doing that because it just saves you time later. Like, I would rather have a basic foundation down before I film the video than waste, like, 20 hours or it's like a one-time thing I can't ever recreate. And then I can go in and post later and maybe add in voiceover if I messed up or fix it. But at least I have a good framework. And that's kind of like the approach I take with like anything I make now.
Yeah, I think it really paid off because like, one, I think that video's performed super well. And so when I watched the intro for it, I was like, I was struck by the fact that it doesn't start like how a lot of YouTube videos start with someone who's like talking really like in your face. Yeah. But it feels more like, like it's the start of a film. Right, with like showing your morning routine and then like you getting ready and then with like the music. And I love like the music change like 1 minute in where you switch it from like this really like classic like New York Frank song Sinatra, to like the modern day, and then it adds the beat. And that whole editing, I think like putting that attention into the intro is key because like you want to like retain viewers, you want to make sure that they stick through the whole video, and that's like the promise that you're building up.
Yeah, that's funny because I literally, that whole intro was just inspired by the song. So one thing for me is like everything I write or like have in a video, every shot, I always have a song that brings it. And I just knew that song. I was like, dude, like this is I'm in New York. It has to hit. It's obviously about New York, so I have to use it. Even though like looking back at the analytics, I'm like, okay, honestly, that wasn't probably the best choice. Like it was a bit too long. Yeah, like that's what killed the video from at different points. But I was like, okay, like. I wanted to do it because I just valued like having something different, like, you know, so that's why I don't really care too much about like, oh, I should have made that sequence shorter or like use a different soundtrack.
So do you find like when you're doing like research for like what works on YouTube, I feel like, especially like in my own content creation, like it's such a hard balance of like finding what works and like I could just copy that and do that, but then you're not really doing what makes you happy or fulfilled. Yeah. Like how do you find that balance between like making something that you know is going to perform for YouTube while at the same time making something that you enjoy making and you feel like is actually valuable for people?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I go through that route all the time. Like, I'm sure if you looked at my channel, there's been like a transition in like the type of content. And honestly, like, I think it stemmed down from mindset. So there's a balance to everything, I think. I think it's good to like steal like an artist and implement these strategies, and obviously like learning how to become a good storyteller, which I'm still learning all the time. Like there's so many things I have to learn. The typical YouTube thumbnail packaging, because at the end of the day, it's like it's marketing, so you still need to find something that like has a good balance. But I think when I first started YouTube, I was very much on like just make videos for fun. Like most of my first maybe 5 videos were just for fun. I didn't have any like planning. But then when I was like, okay, like maybe I can scale YouTube and try to make money from it, that's when I was like, okay, like it got stressful because I wanted to do things that were really fun for me, but also it didn't align with like how YouTube should be structured. So I think the day in the life of the banking video, that was a video where I did what I wanted to do, but I still followed like basic YouTube principles to an extent. Yeah. And even now, like nowadays, I really don't care as much unless I really want that video to do extremely well. Yeah. And I think the reason why I don't care as much is because I'm not really directly relying on YouTube for income. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a whole different story where it's like, okay, I have to like build this audience, get this viewership with the subscribers because you're relying on it. And that's when you're like going to conform. But for me, it's like, I just make what I feel like making, what feels true to me. And I had friends, like a lot of creators that have told me like, yo, Brian, like, I know you can do this stuff, but it still doesn't feel like you. And I feel like now I'm in my phase where I finally like stop caring about all those different videos and trying to like hack the algorithm. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make what works for me and play the long game. Like it's a 10-year journey, not like a 1-year sprint. So that's kind of my mindset now when it comes to like that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice because like I can apply it directly to like what I'm going through. I've gone through like a similar kind of like transition of like, you know, I felt like about like a couple months ago, I was like on a streak of like, oh, every video hit more than like 2,000 views, which for me, like starting a new channel, that meant a lot to me. Yeah. But it was through sort of like creating the same type of video that I knew would perform well based on like YouTube thumbnail and title analytics, right? Yeah. And it's like that, yes, that's super important. Like the thumbnail, the title, like you need to put a lot of thought into it in order to make sure people click on it. But like you said, it's like a 10-year journey. It's not a 1-year sprint. Yeah. And I'm realizing now, like, had I just stuck with that and just gone through that, you know, just made those same types of videos over and over again, maybe I would have built up like an audience of people who were interested in that. Yeah. But, you know, that I'm realizing like, oh, that actually wasn't necessarily the audience that I even wanted. Yeah, exactly. And then like, yeah, you need to experiment and find out like what works for you. Yeah.
You know, I definitely resonate with that because when I made those videos that were more related towards my career and my academia, obviously I knew like I tell myself all the time, like I might do it later, but like if I really want to scale an account that is focused on those things, I know how to add in like elements from cinema to make it unique and still hit the YouTube marks. Yeah. But it's just stuff I'm not passionate about. Like I don't get excited to make it. So making those videos, it felt really forced. Like I was at a point where I had to just like make the videos because I was like, okay, I know it's gonna do well. And then that's when I was like, I'm not having as much fun anymore. I was just like, yo, this isn't it. Yeah. And I stopped posting for a while because I was just like, dude, this isn't fulfilling. And I think a lot of people, obviously, it's like you have to really reflect and think about like, hey, like, is this really what's true to myself? And that's what I did a lot. And I think there's a balance though. Still, like, you can still make very creative things and like things that don't necessarily follow YouTube's rules, but you still implement the things that you need to do and it still will do well. You just have, it's just, it takes time and experience. Like Mr. Beast, even right now, like I love watching his videos now because he's added so much more storytelling and like actual emotion. And I think that just comes with reps and time. Like you have to just become really good at your craft.
Totally. Yeah. So, you know, with your like content creator like journey, like what type of videos you're making now, what types of videos do you want to make in the future? If it's and are you shifting away from like, as you said, those videos in the past that were more related to your career?
Yeah, so I guess there's like different branches. So obviously, like besides my own personal content, I run a brand called Declassified College, which is meant to help college students by giving them advice. And for a long time, it was very heavily centered around other people and like man in the street interviews. Now I'm trying to transition it to being more of like a personal brand or just like very informational, but adding that storytelling format because I think people want to connect with people and everything feels really repetitive on short form nowadays. Like there's so many types of people that I can just watch the intro of the video or know, and it's like, oh, I know, like that's inspired by this guy off the bat. I kind of miss the days where it was like you saw something, and you're like, dude, who is this guy's like inspiration? Like, where did this come from? And no one knew. And so on that account, I'm really focused on just building that out on a personal level, adding those elements to make it fun and educational. Then on my own personal content, recently I posted a video that was just kind of like a raw, like not really heavily produced vlog. And the reason why I did that was because I started making videos because I wanted to document my life. That was like the main reason. And I think when you get wrapped in the fun of like you have to make this video pop and succeed, that's when things get tricky. And I had the realization like, dude, like I've only made like 16, 18 YouTube videos. Like I can't complain till I've made 100 and I haven't. And I know like by the time I make 100 videos, there's going to be huge improvements with everything. So I'm just like, okay, like I'm going to post what I want to post. And then each post, regardless of what it is, I'll try to improve it somehow. So I'm kind of focused on that, just trying to like figure out what my storytelling format's going to be. And right now I'm actually working on like my first, it's not really a short film, but it's like a video that will kind of like, if you didn't know who I was, you would know like why I'm a creator, what my journey's been like, and it kind of encompasses the past 4 years of my life, and that's like a passion project where it's like I'm going to put in a lot of time on the marketing and like the packaging, but I'm still going to tell the story how I want to tell it, because I think it's one of those videos where it's like, yo, it won't fall under YouTube's strict like format, but it'll still be something that's authentic and truly me, and that's what I want to put out right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think it's super valuable to really lean into like what you like you're saying, what you want to make. And something that you mentioned that was interesting is like the difference between short form and long form, or like that idea that short form is getting a bit like maybe like stale isn't the right word, but it feels super maybe like saturated. Like there's so many people now making short form that it can feel frustrating sometimes to like grow an audience. So like how do you find like the difference between short form versus long form to be, and like long term, like where do you want to be?
I think I want to go back to long form, but leverage short form to continue growing that. And I think there's like two reasons. One, just like long form you actually have a dedicated audience. If someone can sit and spend time with you for like 8+ minutes, that's like a lot. That's like me hopping on a phone call with someone random that I don't really know. But it's like, I'm doing that on a consistent basis. That's cool. And I just think like the connection and the leverage you have with a long form audience is better if you want to like build a brand or like try using your audience as a test for something. I think long form is the way to go long term. But also YouTube's kind of just been like hitting that, watching other creators and seeing like how they've have those core audiences. That's something that comes with long form content, I think. Short form does the same as well, but it's not the same of like, oh, I like was really inspired by this Instagram creator growing up versus like this YouTuber. Like you have a strong connection to the YouTuber. Whereas Instagram, I could kind of like take someone's content, even though our stories are different, I could still feel like the format very heavily. But I think it's the same for long form too. But I just think long form's a move. But I'm still going to leverage short form a lot. Like I want to post on it more. It's just like, it's hard to tackle two things. So short form is a whole different game versus long form. And you have to have resources and energy to like learn how to master both.
Yeah, no, it's completely, because I tried to get into TikTok for a little bit and it's fun. And it's like, there's like that element of like, oh, it's something fresh. It's completely different. I feel like you can be way less produced. But it still takes a ton of time to come up with those ideas, to come up with like what you're going to say. Or if you're editing stuff, like there's still a lot of editing involved. So I think, when you're talking about like your long form content and how like you want to like long term, like you said, like it's like a 10-year journey. Like what do you see as like being that 10-year journey for you, especially when you're going to be like entering a career that I'd imagine will be taking up a big part of your life. So like, what's it like to be a content creator, but a content creator with a career, which I think we're seeing more and more of those types of people out there.
I think it's called there's a term for it. Man, what's the term? It was like in a published press article. The part-time creator, that's the term.
Okay.
I think I'm realizing this more and more recently that like I don't think becoming a YouTuber or content creator was really my goal at all.
Totally.
And that came with like a lot of like reflection and like thinking, because if that was my goal, I think it would be a whole different story. Whereas like for me, my main goal going to school or like just like going into adulthood was like, yo, I want to like become an entrepreneur or do cool stuff and be financially free. That was like always the goal. I think social media was an outlet to allow me to get to that goal faster, and I've been able to like meet so many great people, learn so much, and I think the 10-year goal for me is like, I don't mind working in corporate for a while if it's like a means to an end. Like I'll get the experience or at least initial capital to like help and work on other things. And then content's also there so I can document that journey. Because I think like I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was like, don't listen to successful people because they don't actually have it's like they don't actually showcase what it was like in that moment where you actually are right now. It's always about like after they've made it. And my whole goal with content was like, yo, I want to document the current present, whether it's through writing, journaling, I don't know, filming a video, making a short film. Like if that can show how I feel in that current moment, that's documentation of my life. And that was kind of like the goal. So the 10-year journey for me is honestly, I don't know where I'm going to be in the future. It's kind of like that's one of the points in the video I'm working on right now. But I just know that it's going to be aligned with like things I value, and I'm going to continue doing it until that actual end result's visible.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's awesome that you have a purpose that is like not attached to like the views and subscribers. And it's like, oh, like you said before, like it's documenting your life, right?
Yeah.
So if you're consistent with that, then, you know, you don't have to worry about like this external pressure that I feel like a lot of times people needlessly like put onto their channels because they want to be like a quote unquote like full-time YouTuber. Yeah. Which I think like, you know, in the 2010s, we saw with the huge rise of YouTube, we saw this whole new kind of economy grow, which is like the creator economy, with people who are making a full-time living off of
it's
like,
still new too. It's like a baby still. Like we don't know how it's going to be 10 years from now.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, and so I think like I saw an article like I think yesterday, which is like someone who like quit their job. She was like a Discord product manager. And then she like made a video about like her getting fired, and then it like went super viral, and then that inspired her to sort of like, she'd been making videos for a while, but then it's like, okay, like embracing.
Chloe Shi?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah, I met her at VidCon like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, we'll definitely have to talk about that. But it was just like a really brief like LinkedIn post where it's just like she mentioned that like, oh, now that it's like her day job, like content creation is a full-time thing, like the magic's a bit lost, and it's like, oh, this is just like any other type of career. It's just like you're in business for yourself. So it's more entrepreneurial.
Yeah. It's also, if you're relying on I think if like, it's weird because everyone's still determining that balance. But like if you're relying on it fully for money, then it's like a job in my opinion. Totally. If it's like a side thing, like that brings me income, then that's like a part-time thing that I can enjoy. Yeah. I think for me, it's like, I want to have different streams, but I also want the passion, the love to be there still. And I think like even now, like I do content pretty much full time for this other brand right now. And I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, I like love it, but I also hate this. So then, but it's nice because that's like my, there's this quote from, what's her name? Karen Chang. She's a creator on Instagram. She spoke at Adobe Max like a year or two ago. And the whole notion of it's called, one for you and one for them. And it's like, okay, I'll create content for this brand because it's like it's for them. It's like for this person, I have to. But then I'll make something for myself. And even if I'm not going to post it, at least I still made that piece of art and I feel good and I enjoy it. So that's my mindset now. It's like, I'm going to grind and push through the boring stuff, but then I still have my passion, which is my own stuff on the side. And then I think when you start relying on that passion for money, that's when it gets stressful. Then you start going against your values and maybe you start changing how you want, and then it's going to become miserable. So
totally. Yeah. So would you ever see yourself like building a product or like selling a service aside from your career? Or would that just be like something that you see yourself like not like wanting to do because this is something that's more of like a passion?
Yeah. Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. So like, would you want to like sort of turn your like YouTube channel into more of like a traditional like creator business, or would you want it to just be like a purely creative outlet?
I think it's a mix of both. I think I'm a lot more business oriented than like creative and like artist. Like I still don't call myself an artist or creative. I think I'm just a lot more, I think business first.
Yes.
But I think I would, like if the opportunity arise, I would probably do that. But I would still try to keep I'd probably write down core principles that I don't want to like go against, and that would help me keep that like passion for art. I think that's a good balance, but I think that mindset came like a lot later in like my whole content journey. I've been doing this for like 2 years now, so.
Gotcha. Yeah. Dope. Let's talk about VidCon then.
Yeah.
How was that? What made you want to
go? So for the brand I'm working on, Declassified, we usually go every year, and this is my first VidCon. Actually, I couldn't go last year because I was kind of busy. Yeah. But this year I wanted to go just to like experience it. You always hear about VidCon growing up. And then I just wanted to just see who I would meet. And honestly, it was a pretty good trip. Like I just got back from a trip to Japan, had like a week to relax, and I was like, okay, let's go to VidCon. Flew in, went to a few events, creator events. I got to meet people that I like watched a lot. Like I met Eric Way, Chloe Shi, Jimmy Zhang, a lot of other creators that like binging with Babish, like Billy, Anthpo. Like I met a lot of people that like I knew but also haven't met in person. So that was cool, and I think it was just nice to like match the face to the person. I don't know, just see the vibes. I've never been to I've never been in the LA scene in terms of creators. I'm more used to like the East Coast vibe. Yeah. So that was cool, and I think it made me want to work harder because I just saw like how much work that these people were putting, and I was just like, okay, like I can definitely be doing more in some like aspects of my life. So it was kind of like nice to just get that reminder.
Yeah. Did you notice anything about like, I guess, the creator economy as a whole? I think like there was Mr. Beast Manager like has like a newsletter that he put out where he mentioned that like this year's VidCon was very like felt more like an industry event as opposed to like a fan event.
Honestly, I would like my raw take. I would not ever pay to go to VidCon. Yeah. Like if it wasn't like a company expense, I wouldn't ever go. Totally. Yeah. I don't think it appeals to that. There's no level of hype like it used to have. Gotcha. And I've heard like it has gone down significantly each year as I was talking to different creators. I think the main value I got out of it was just going to like the after parties or like these invite only parties where you could actually meet people and develop like a connection after.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. So do you feel like there's a difference between like the East Coast and the West Coast in terms of like the culture for creators?
I think so, but maybe that's because like my whole journey and who I know as a creator has been a little bit more different. Yeah. I guess like the brief story is, so when I started making content fall 2021, I stumbled across, no, it was actually, spring 2022. I stumbled across a video that was called How a Stranger Changed My Life. Mm-hmm. And it was with this creator named James So. I don't know if you've seen the Korean NPC guy. Okay. That's you're not on short. He's on short form mainly, and this guy named Chris, and basically, Chris had allowed James to meet his hero, which was Elliot Choi at the time, which is cool. I was like, oh, this guy is crazy. Like he has insane connects. And then Chris was telling a story about how he had like a whole crazy adventure of like sneaking into Forbes HQ and just meeting all these different people that were his heroes. When I heard that story, I was like, whoa, that's insane. Like I never thought you could actually meet people that you want to meet because it just seems like inaccessible.
Totally.
I hit up Chris on Instagram. I just DM'd him. I was like, yo, I love your story, blah, blah, blah. Love to learn more. Mm-hmm. Chris basically gets back to me. He's like, okay, I'll hop on a call with you, but first I want you to read this book. I was like, okay, like, what is this guy going to give me, bro? Like, what is this? Yeah, like homework. Like, what? I have to hop on a call? Yeah. So, and at the time, I didn't read books. Like, I used to read a lot, and I was like, dude, I don't have time for this. But he sent me a book. It was called The Third Door by Alex Banayan. Mm-hmm. I read the book, and it was like the first book where I finished it in like one sitting, but it was also just so good. Like I think I learned so many of the principles I live by now from that book. And I've never had anything impact me that hard. Yeah. And when I read the book, I finished it in maybe like 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours. I hit up Chris, and Chris was like, yo, we hopped on the call, we kept in contact for a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And I guess just giving some context in the book, because I think the lessons in that book kind of helped me as a creator. But essentially the book it's about this guy who's on a journey to meet Bill Gates and interview him, and he kind of gets rejected a bunch of times, but he goes on this journey of like meeting different people and basically created this principle called the third door, which is essentially when you think of a nightclub, right? There's like lines to get into the nightclub. So the first line is the VIP line. It's for like all the billionaires, celebrities, rich people of the world that have easy access. Yeah. Then you have the other line where it's like 99% of humanity that's like outside. It goes across the block to the end of like all the way to the airport, like super far. Yeah. But there's actually another way to get into the nightclub where you have to go through an alleyway, climb up a fence, sneak through the window, and bang on a door to get in. And that's the third door. And what he noticed was there's a lot of people in life like Bill Gates, Steven Spielberg, and all these successful people he interviewed had taken a third door to get to where they are today. Where someone they met helped them get into this interview or helped them get into this room, or like Spielberg, who snuck in pretending to be a director, and he ended up being able to pitch his first film. And basically when I heard that principle, it made me realize like, yo, I can actually meet anyone I want to meet. And at the time when I started making content, I really wanted a community because it just felt lonely. Like, especially in Houston, like no one's really making videos out here on YouTube, at least. There's creators, but it wasn't at the time. It was just like kind of empty. And I used that book to meet other people. Yeah. And that was just like going up, hitting creators up on Instagram with like a unique message or like inviting them to hang out. Yeah. And after that, because I like met Chris, stayed in contact with him, I would always ask him for book recommendations. And after a while, Chris was like, he gave me a book called Make No Small Plans, which is a book about how this guy named Elliot created an event called Summit. and it's basically for entrepreneurs to come together. And I was like, yo, you know what we need to have? Let's have a summit for content creators where it's like a nice 3-day thing where you can just come together, live together, hang out, and have actual intimate connections and like relationships, because a lot of events are very like networky, you just go and drink, talk, leave. Let's get something more intimate. I told Chris, and he's like, Brian, I've actually been working on that for a whole year with some of my friends. I was like, oh my God, like, is there anything I can do to be a part of this? Yeah. And because I read the book, The Third Door, I knew that I had to do a lot more to like be a part of that opportunity. I was like, I can't miss out on it. And Chris was like, nah, don't worry. And so I was like, okay, I have to do something. So I made a video when I got home, and it was like an introduction video about who I am, like the content I make, and I sent it over to Chris. It took me like 2 hours to make. And I was like, Chris, watch this video. Hopefully I can help. And Chris was like, Brian, I watched the video. We loved it. Me and the team loved it. We would love to give you an invitation to this event called Creator Camp. Yeah. And so I was able to get the invitation. I went to Creator Camp that summer. Yeah. And that's when I met so many different creators, and it changed my perspective on content. That's why there's a shift in my content. It was more of like, I want to make things that are true to myself instead of like what I'm forcing out. So it changed my perspective on content, but also gave me a community of people that I could fall back to and talk to. And that made the journey not feel as lonely. So that's why I'm always down to like travel to meet someone or hang out with different people. Because I'm like, it's a good reminder to feel inspired, but also like you're not alone. You're with a community of people that understand the same pains and the journey that you're going through. That's kind of why I feel like the New York side of things is a lot more different from like LA, because I've associated with people on that side of things more. Yeah. And I've had more intimate connections on the East Coast versus LA, where it felt like a lot more climb the ladder Hollywood vibes. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the vibe that a lot of people get from LA, which is like, who you know is everything. If you don't know anyone, like you're nobody in this town, right? But yeah, no, I've seen like the Creator Camp actually like on LinkedIn. I think I saw some people talking about it, but that's awesome that you're able to go. So what was like, what misconceptions, or like what kind of, how did that change like the way you viewed content? Like what were the big takeaways you got from that?
I think just learning to be more, at the time, I think I was like 20 years old. I was just trying to figure things out and just understand myself a bit more, and I used content to express that. And I think going there allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable doing that, being able to be more expressive through my art. And so I think that was one of the biggest takeaways. But also at the time, it was more of like we were going against the YouTube norms. Like we're not trying to like, it was like the big rush of like the Mr. Beastification of YouTube. Like let's avoid content that's like that. And so I started pivoting my content to be more authentic and tell stories. I remember after Creator Camp, I was in such a creative rut because I felt like I couldn't make what I wanted to make anymore, because I was like, oh my God, like these guys are going to judge me now. Like I don't make content that like fits the mission. And so I went on this journey of like, okay, trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about, but also aligned towards like YouTube norms. And I remember I made this one video because I turned 21. It was like the things no one tells you about 21, something like that. Yeah. And that was my first video where I was really authentic and just like pretty transparent about how I felt. When I made that video, I felt so good. I was like, yo, this is like what I want to do more of, where I just get to express myself. And now I found a balance of like, I can do both of those things. And I'm still trying to figure out how to like format that on YouTube. But I'm getting closer, and I'm like, okay, like I know how this is going to work nowadays, because other people have done it pretty well.
That's awesome. I feel like that's like the hardest skill to learn on YouTube is like, like we talked before, matching like that thing that like actually like brings you a lot of value and like makes you feel like good to put something out there. But then at the end of the day, it's like, it's not just like a personal diary, you know, like it would be one thing if you're making videos like just for yourself. And I think there's a lot of value in that. But I think there's also a lot of value in getting it out to as many people who are interested in it as you can. And like actually finding out like what other people want to learn about. Like maybe there are people out there who are like, you know, like for the video about turning 21, like there's probably a lot of people who are like 20 turning 21 who
there's
are
still
like
people that watch it and comment. I'm like, oh my God, like that's so cool. Like I think the biggest feeling is when I made that shift in content. Because I started talking about more real things that people can relate to, besides like the typical like my career, I got a lot more like meaningful comments. Like there's one comment I remember still. I made another video about it's okay to be behind or something, And someone was like, dude, like, I watched this video and I'm crying. Like, and I saw that. I cried myself. Wow. I was like, oh my God. Like, because I was really, like, I was going through something at the time and I made that video out of, like, the emotions I felt. But for someone to comment, like, dude, this made me cry. And, like, I felt this way and thank you. I have those comments, like, framed in my room because I'm like, dude, that's, like, the reminder of, like, hey, like, I want to always make sure that I can make someone feel something with the video I put out. Like, even if it's, like, a YouTube style video, if someone can still be like, yo, this really helped me and like I felt something heavily from this video, then that's how I know I did a good job, at least in telling that story. And I think I'm still learning how to like really appeal to people's emotions with all the content I make, but there's been videos that I've made where it's hit really hard and people have mentioned things, whether it's short form and long form, I'm like, yo, that's a good feeling. That's when I know like I won. Like that was my goal. I wanted to make someone cry so bad. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's super powerful because it's like, I think we do underestimate sometimes like the impact of like people watching, even if you have like
10 viewers.
Exactly. It's like those are 10 people who chose to watch your video. And it's like, you know, I definitely think like the videos that I've gotten the most views on, ironically, sometimes those are the videos with the least personal connection. Where it's like, oh, this appeals to the widest, broadest audiences, but it's like no one really connects with it on like a deeper level. And like it's my videos where it's like, oh, I'm just trying to be like, I'm practicing vulnerability and like really sharing like the things that I've learned are the videos where it's like, oh, this is like what I needed to hear, or like, oh, this helped me with like this career thing, or it causes people to like reach out to me and like ask for advice. It's
a powerful feeling.
So what's when you're at your next job, what do you think about like the type of content that you're going to make? Will you make like vlog content that's related to your career?
I think it's not more of like if it's aligned with what I'm actually doing. I think it's just what I'm doing. So like if I'm working a job, I'll probably like I'm documenting my life, so I'll probably make videos that showcase what I'm doing in that moment. So if I am working, like I'll probably make a video that showcases my job. It might not only focus on that though, because I want people to like actually get to know who I am as a person. But probably
it'll be like one video you make out of like 5.
Or it might just be like there's a guy on YouTube who's killing it right now, and I literally like every time I binge his videos, I just like get so amped to work. But his name is Daniel Dallin, and like he literally just shows like his raw, like he works all the time, but he just shows the raw reality of doing it. And I think he does it perfectly, where he's actually just documenting everything, and you don't see him actually like you see him work because he's setting up the shots and you know he worked, but he has the backing to prove it. And I want to imitate that style in the sense of like, yo, I'm just gonna set my camera for a bit, do my work. It's not going to be the big focus of the video because there's other things I do, but I want it to be a part of it. And that's probably how I'm going to package those videos.
Okay. When I'm super interested in this like documenting kind of style of video, and that's what I want to sort of get more into. So like, what do you think is like the most important, like what do people watch those videos for, and like what is the most important thing to do in that video? Is it like the filming of all the tiny moments? Is it like the speaking to the camera parts? Like maybe it's like something else, but like what aspect of those videos do people like really get a lot out of?
So I guess to answer the first part of your question, I think it's when I think about what hits me personally, it's to live through someone. I think we do that a lot with like celebrities, and just like there's a reason why people care so much about like celebrity news and like clips, because they want to know like what is it like to be in that world. Like there's this channel on YouTube I watch that's about music and artists, and like it's called Music Medico or something, but they always have these short form clips of like maybe Tyler the Creator talking about like his life story, and like, yo, like some guy said I was a comedian, so I made a song in spite. But like just understanding like, oh, that's how he felt, and like that's like his life. I feel like I can live through that. I think with documentary style videos, like channels like Daniel Dallin, Life of Riza, it's cool to like live through them. Like you feel like as you're watching the video, you're actually in that spot. And I think that's when you know you're doing a pretty good job. And I think that's why people watch those videos. Sometimes it's also just an escape. Like they want to see like, yo, like if I actually pursued this path, like what would my life look like? And what could it look like? And I think those creators that showcase that do really well. And that's kind of what I aspire to be. Because I think I'm in a phase where I'm very much in my building phase. Like I need to get to work and do it. And then I can tell the stories. I think it's really hard to do the work and document at the same time.
Totally.
That's what a lot of people struggle with. I think there's a balance, but you have to make it really minimal and like become a really good storyteller to do both. And then to answer the second part of your question, it was whether it's like the shots or the tiny moments. I think there's a lot of factors. It could be the music. Like you might use a song that like really portrays the emotions and like you feel something in that moment. The shots have a factor. I think it's just being authentic though. I think that's what really works. Like you can tell when someone is kind of being fake behind a camera versus like just being real. Like for example, in the video I'm working on right now, I have moments in that video where it's like I literally had a shot and I was just crying. And it was just natural. I was just like, I can't like fake that. Like I don't want to like recreate a scene where I'm doing
all right,
that.
take
Like,
two.
I have like a actual no, like you can tell like I was going through something. And I think when you have moments like that, that's what really pulls you. Like I think about all the videos that hit me the most, like from some of my closest friends. There were some very clear moments, whether it was the music, maybe it wasn't really a shot, maybe it's like the music, the sound design, the words that they said. Like words are really powerful, and I think people forget about that. Like sometimes there's like that one phrase you hear in a podcast, you're like, whoa, that hit me so hard. And I think stuff like that is probably what helps with that.
Do you script your videos, or does it like more off the cuff?
So for the raw style videos, I like have a story structure like ABC. Like this is what happens in the beginning. The character goes through this. So for example, one of the videos I'm working on because I went to Japan is Japan like an anime? And essentially the story was, at first it was just like, oh, I want to like go to Japan and vlog and document what my experience was like. And when I got there, I got sick. So there's a lot of conflict. And I was like, okay, I didn't have time to actually go and like compare, contrast scenes from anime like I wanted to. But I still have the story of like, yo, I'm going to Japan on this mission. I'm going to face these different conflicts that happen. Like I broke my ND filter, unfortunately. There's so many things that happen, but I still have this overall takeaway at the end where it's like, I didn't need that initial thing or thought I had. And the character has a contrast in the beginning. And I think that's like what puts everything together.
Okay. I think that's really important. And I love the way that you think about it. Like, for one, is that's character is you. You're like...
Yeah, like, I always refer myself as character, even though it's me. Yeah. Because that's just for writing purposes. I'm like, the short form I'm working on right now, it's like C1, me, like character faces this. One of my friends, his name's Caleb Shaw. He's doing this cool thing on Instagram about documenting and becoming a full-time filmmaker. And one of the things that he told me about was having log lines. And a log line in a movie is kind of just like a summary or brief description of like what's going to happen. And what I do for my videos is like for each act, I'm like, okay, a log line, character faces dilemma, blah, blah, blah. Log line act 2, character does blah, 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 this happens. Log line act 3, blah, blah, blah. And that helps me have that basic structure. So I'm not really scripting everything out, but I know like how the flow's going to go. And when it comes to things that I can't recreate, like if I'm going on a trip and I have this idea, I'm always prepared for a story, but I can't force things. I'm not going to like purposely do something to force it to happen. Like I'll just document what happened and be honest. Because I think a lot of people, when you think about YouTube and like having like all these high tension moments, sometimes people go too far and try to actually force it in. And if it doesn't actually work, just go back to what really happened. Like, yo, this happened, and how can I make it interesting? Or like, how can I tell the story better?
Dope. Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think that's an excellent point to end it. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. This is amazing. I think you had some great insights for me, hopefully for people who are listening and watching. So yeah, subscribe to his channel.
Thanks for having me.
See you in the next one.